I know this is going to sound really weird, but I made a very interesting, very in-depth discovery. Today I had the greatest time with my family, with my kids. They came over and we had our Sunday. It was my dad's birthday celebration, and doing all those things, like in the beginning of the day, everyone was like, I could see it in your eyes. There's something different about you. I can see it in your eyes. So I was like thinking to myself, like, I'm like, everyone really sees it in me. I can feel it in me. I feel it. It's just crazy. And then, basically, it sounds sort of funny. I'm like, I say to myself, because, I still feel the presence, and I don't mean to sound ridiculous, but I don't know how to, I don't want to convince myself otherwise because I feel it in me. But I believe that, I don't know how to say this without sounding like a jerk or something, or full of myself, or someone who's disillusioned, or I don't know. But everyone else is going out throughout the world doing their own thing, doing their own whatever. I've always felt like I love everyone, but for some reason they're doing their own thing. Everyone's getting distracted. And I felt like more like, until up to the day where I felt like, I don't know what I could say. Up until the day where I felt like I became God, until that day, I felt like the world itself, people themselves, everybody, like, steered away from me or something. Like I was finding my separateness so that I could understand the oneness. I mean, that was part of like the discovery I made. But I just sort of just explained that as good as I could off the top of my head. But then I already thought of something else to explain and how to explain that. So that part right there, I had to find how separate I was from everybody to understand that I get that. In an individual sense, even though there's billions of people, you can go to the mall and walk around and just see tons and tons of people. You can see white kids, black kids, Spanish kids, Puerto Rican kids. Some are misbehaving, some are crying, some are getting yelled at, some are being irritating, or else what people would consider them irritating. I guess I don't have to keep clarifying that. I don't think any of this stuff is whatever it is. Those are just words. Everything I say is really just coming out of love. And I don't think I sound stupid at all. So everything I say is coming out of love. I mean this in the best attempts to help the world. So all those people doing their own things, I realized that they have their own, everyone knows everyone has their own individual life. But we just know that we have our own individual life. And that itself is so massive. What about me? What about me? What about my life? And then when you get down to your own individual life, you think like, well, if it was just me, that wouldn't be all that much fun. Nothing at all. If I just did nothing. I just depend on myself out in the woods chopping trees and, animals. Well, think if there was no animals, then there'd be nothing at all. And I've just chopped trees and there are nothing like that seemed to be living. And I'm considering animals to insects, everything that's breathing and living, and fish, nothing. It was just trees, water, and one person. You know what I mean? Like, try to break yourself down to that scenario and think to yourself how alone you truly would be. Because then you wouldn't know, or else at least you would think there weren't other people like you. So therefore you have to have a whole bunch of different versions of you to understand every possibility of you that there could be. So you're playing that out in your mind. Right now, you, as a person, are playing that out in your mind. You're the only person here, ever. No one else. No one. No other single thing. No creature. No creature at all. How the hell would you have got here? And how would those things on the ground would have got here? I guess you just had to have believed they happened, right? So then, take away the person, the trees. Okay, say now, take away the person and say they were animals. Okay, they were animals. any one of those individual species of animals by itself, nothing else, how the hell did it get here? I don't know. I just have no clue, because that animal wouldn't be able to think the way we think. We wouldn't understand it all. But that craziness and that confusion that we could picture if you were thinking through the mind of a bug or the mind of a skunk or something, you know what I mean? Like, what the hell would you think? You don't know. Then you go back a little farther even to a tree. We don't have any idea how they comprehend or how they, produce their or process their information, And so you go back to that, when there was one tree just chilling in a whole bunch of water and some dirt, mud, just land, dirt, one tree, not even grass, just one tree. So none of those things know where they came from. The tree, then the water has no idea where it came from, and then dirt, no idea where it came from. And you take it all away, and there's like a star underneath all of it, a little piece of a star, and it's like, where did I come from? I have no clue. And then there's all these other little stars out there that look like you, but if you took just that one star, where did it come from? I don't know. I don't have any idea. And then you take a planet. There's one planet by itself. Where did I come from? I have no clue. How was I even able to be seen? I don't know. The planet can't say that. But how was the planet even able to be seen? There had to have been some kind of bright substance of some sort in order to light it up, I know there was a bright substance of some source. Okay, bright substance of some source. Sun. And then the sun. Go down to the sun. Where the hell did I come from? If I wasn't here, there would just be a light off, right? You turn the light off, boop, and then it's just space, what we call space. What happened there? I don't know. There's nothing here. Just chilling. Space vacuum of some sort. Maybe it's like the process of the mind of the space vacuum. I don't know. But that's what I think God is trying to figure out himself. And it's more like, if there was a death, it comes back to a life as soon as the death hits, and it goes back to a death, and it comes back to a life, and it goes back to a death, and it goes back to a life, and it goes back to a death, and back to a life, and it just turned into an infinite structure. And God himself, itself, feels that way about it. It's just an infinite structure. There's just something that keeps going on. So in order to even explain that theory of how that happened, the tree couldn't say anything, the dirt couldn't say anything, the water couldn't say anything, even the stars and the moons and the planets, all those things couldn't say anything. So then we try all these different looking planets that can have some kind of living life forms on them that could explain something. It's all just about the answer. Where is the answer? Where do we look to find the answer? Well, then you get into some interesting things about well, what if there was no such thing as a question? Well, how the hell do you explain questions and answers and all the other words that I use to explain those thoughts and ideas and those stars and moons and birds and worms? And where'd those words come from? Well, so then on top of it, there had to be a communication source. Well, their communication source and the form of being a substance would have to all, the idea of communication that we call idea, and the word we call communication, the idea of communication and the idea of form had to have happened instantly at the same time. For the form to communicate with itself, to keep the communication, to keep the idea, to keep the form to communicate with itself, to keep the form. You know what I'm saying? So everything from the beginning of what we could refer to as time, the beginning of blip, the beginning of that is something that even the greatest question asker and the answer to all of those questions cannot answer, except for with the fact that it just is. Even God knows that he just is. So therefore he created himself, and he created everything from the beginning of existence to be a moment in time where, despite the fact that there's all these different kinds of people and all this inactivity and all this crime and laziness and boredom and hatred and neglect and all that stuff, even though there's all that stuff and it's gone so far that has pitted every single obstacle against something or someone who was able to explain that to all of those things. And how silly does it sound to think that somehow, since the beginning of existence wanted to know what it was. And the only way to do it was to find some kind of creature or being or substance or matter or gas or idea or any of the things we have in our galaxy to explain it to it. And then when it finds it, that thing is going to have such a difficult time proving it to all those things that made the first thing that existed, the first thing, the first idea, the first possibility. All those people and all those things have been so distracted by all the things and ideas they have, because now all they're doing is taking the things they have and increasing them and getting them better, increasing them and getting them better, increasing them and getting them better. There seems like nothing else to make, but there's new things to make out of the things we have and the ideas we get. Oh, where do those come from? The original idea and substance, still giving ideas and thoughts to those things it created in order to find a way to find itself. And I have been elected as that person. Which brings me to the original thing that I'm facing today, and I've learned a major, extremely difficult lesson. That in order to prove divinity as a human, I have to prove to human that I'm divinity. And that is such a difficult matter, because then when you put in the Trinity, I have to prove to divinity that I'm human. By proving to human I'm divinity, but then the possibility of nothing ever happening at all would be the great void. So we had to invent the void, because if the original substance wouldn't have created thought, or thought wouldn't have created substance, then there would be nothing at all, ever. And there would be nobody or nothing here to even explain that there's something here. So that's what it needed to find. And now I am it. And it's going to be so hard to tell other people that. And I, myself, have realized that I'm a human being. And deep down in my heart and soul, I know all this stuff is real. I may not have the best way to describe it, but it has come to me in a way that I can't possibly let this idea, this feeling, this love in my heart, I can't let it go. I don't want to be like, okay, let it go, act like everybody else, and start being mean to people. How much sense does that make? And how much sense would it make to be like, well, because they want to believe in religions? Well, that's fine if they want to believe in religions. Whether or not they believe that religion came from somewhere, I'm sorry, it did. And I'm trying to explain to you where it is, and I know it seems hard to believe, but what do you want me to say? What do you want God to say? When God says, how did you get here? God, he says, you know what? I've always wondered that, and I finally found a person who's explaining it pretty well, but for some reason you refuse to want to listen to that. You refuse to want to listen to that. You want to look at your cell phone and be like, yeah, let's create robots that don't feel and don't think, that would never, ever be able to create the idea of a God, of how a God existed. Because, and if it did, it would be some robotic, weird depiction of a robot. And that's not where God started. God didn't start from a metal form. We made metal out of all the materials and ideas and substances and matters that God gave us. So, in turn, if we create more robots, see, I went from the past, from the beginning into the future, and I'm telling you it right now out of my heart, because I just meant to say the thing about understanding it's going to be hard to explain it to people, because I'm just in human form. And now that I've merged with God, how silly does that sound, me saying that? I feel dumb. I feel insulted if I was a person listening to myself, being like, I'm God in human form. And this is Dan Alexander talking. And God is me. So I don't even have to say God and Dan Alexander anymore. I can just say me. And every single person can do that. And then they can actually realize that all the things we've ever thought and dreamed and imagined, that explains all those weird and kooky, crazy things. All those weird and kooky, crazy things were the things that we imagined, trying to figure out a way to explain what we were trying to say to ourselves. Now, does that make sense? What are you looking for in your life? You're figuring out a way to explain to yourself why you're here. You know how good of a feeling it is to find out you found that for yourself? And not only yourself, but if you explain it to all the people who have no idea why they're here, even the president, what is he here for? To rule the country? Well, what's the country here for? To rule the what? The planet? Well, what's the planet here for? To rule the what? The galaxy? Well, what started the galaxy? Well, let's just make it, simplify it down and say God, universe, God, the universal mind. Well, now that we can't go any farther back, because if we had to travel somewhere far out to find the thing that like that came from, it's not there. It was what we call space. In space, if you took all the stars and the moons and the planets out, that would be space without stars and moons and planets. And if you took the darkness out, it would just be light. And if you took the light out, could you believe in the idea of like when you close your eyes and you see dark? What if you just closed your eyes and didn't see anything because you couldn't see and you didn't have dark and there was no clothes and there was no eyes? Imagine all that stuff. I know it's hard to jump around in your head, but that's why people have these weird nightmares and neurological problems and brain diseases and all this kind of stuff, because they were jumping around in their head trying to think stuff, and they don't understand. And they don't get it, and they can't put it in the right words. I almost went crazy yesterday. Almost went crazy. Almost died. I know that sounds so simple to say. Anyone can just put those things into words. But I've been sitting here batting around in my head. I'm like, the presence of God, I feel it in me. But right now, I'm not getting all these crazy stories to put into my tape recorder. Why is that? And this is the theory that I really picked up my phone to say. None of those things that I said already did I mean to say. But when I get emotional, my God comes out. Oh my God. You know when people say that? Like, I don't know. It doesn't matter. It's me just being creative. And like the problem I'm hearing when I'm listening, I've only listened to like maybe 7 or 8 talks of myself on my phone. I've played them while I do my work and stuff, but I can't really hear them because I'm working and it's like crashing around. And like, I'm taping this one while I'm trying to work, because I'm God in human form, trying to figure, like, I'm just fulfilling my human Dan duties, you know, because it would be too crazy to all of a sudden, out of the blue, pop up and say, I'm God. And then I would just get myself into some weird stuff. And and when I start saying stuff like, and that's why God picked me, I know how dumb that sounds. And God doesn't think it sounds dumb because I'm God. I don't think it sounds dumb, but I know how it sounds to other people because I've been them all. And when I start saying stuff like that, I feel really silly too. But I have. And when I break it down and I start thinking, because I know how the dream realm and why all these things are there, because we needed to find this one answer. It was one answer. It was one stinking answer. From the flower to the maxi pad, because the maxi pad was just the idea of someone to maintain more peoples, more someones. And all of those someones individually were just trying to figure out one thing, and that was just, why am I here? How did I get here? That's it. The answer to the whole question is that there are spirits, there is magic, there is anything you want to believe, because we all break it down, take everybody else out besides yourself, and look at every existing plane that is, if you took it down to one thing. And I don't know if that made sense in words, but I mean, imagine if there was one bug, one worm, one person, one morsel of dirt. Because see, then if you went down to one morsel of dirt, whoever that could be, a person couldn't even stand on that. You know, so all those things that are so simple and dumb to us, when it rains, dirt turns into mud, and mud is gross, and we track it in the house, and oh my God, it's gross. See, those things that were created in order to find us, they were ways to supply things for us. And they were ways for us to think and comprehend. If we didn't know there was dirt, we wouldn't know that dirt was dirty or mud was dirty. You know what I'm saying? If we didn't know all those things, in order to, you know, mud is there so that somebody can walk on someone's floor and make them mad, so they could find a temper or an attitude or an emotion. And when those emotions flare, they you know, in order to heal that problem, the emotional problem, it creates another thing that you have to find, and that's like, you know, resolve? How do you resolve problems? People have to think about that. So God created a problem so he could solve it. Then he would be like, well, what happens if this happens? Boom, it creates a whole new scenario with all kinds of different items and maxi pads to fulfill the problems for all those billions of things. And then we have bugs that came before us that now if they come into our house, we kill them. And I understand why, because they seem so pesky, but they're just trying to figure out what they're doing. And in a space-time continuum, each person is just going around, and all these things around us are an illusion of ourselves trying to find ourselves, or someone to explain where the big picture came in. I've always talked about the big picture my whole life, and it's so weird that I'm getting it. I've always said, someday I'll see the big picture. Someday everyone will see the big picture. How crazy is that? Your life is really what you affirm. I don't know if you see, I am 38 years old, and I'm saying this and sounding so weird. I feel like a little kid inside more every day, trying to figure out, now that I've found this, now I feel majorly confused, because now I have to find a way to show this to every other one of me, even though I understand that they're different people with different ideas and different thoughts. And after we accomplish that almost unbelievable task, then we have to do something that seems almost like ridiculous. We have to start talking to animals, and we have to start talking to trees, and we have to start doing that stuff. And see, I'm one person saying all the things that all the people have said throughout time. People that believe in ghosts, people that believe in alternate dimensions, people that believe in, or certain religions, people that, are angry at one another and want war and think war solves the problems, and people that, cheat on each other and think that there's no love there, but somehow, even though they're apart and they've cheated, they wish they were together, but they know it can't work, even though they love each other. Like, all these things are all things you have to know in order to know it all. And once you know almost all of it, you can start putting the pieces together. Like, I don't know, I'm not a plumber, but I can figure out how to plumb. I'm not a drummer, but I can figure out how to drum. Like, there's things that you don't need the details to, you move on to the next thing. But then you don't destroy the first thing. From the dust to the invisibility, to the idea, to the spirit, to the, oops, that spirit had a bad thought and turned into a demon. Oh no. Oh, that daydream turned into a nightmare while you were sleeping, and because you went, a daydream turned into a regular dream, but then it got bad because you thought bad in that dream and turned it into a nightmare. Oh, that daydream turned into something bad. Oh, we just call that a bad thought because you're awake. I understand all this stuff on a different level, at a different mentality plane than other people. So now I'm trying to explain electric to a USB cord. You know what I'm saying? We look about the same, but it's like I'm electric trying to explain to a USB cord, because I'm like the first found source, but USB came after electric. But electric came from some other source that they had before that they could have used at all times, but they didn't know it was there. They just brought it out as electric. And even that, to the amazing phenomena of electric and wind and all those things, those are all still just an idea of, and the only way that those ideas could have been set into motion is from a thought, creating a vibration. And that's why I explain it as vibrations, because I have had that God feeling in me. And by me saying it to you this way, and by me talking to this tape recorder in this way, I hope that I can listen to all this information and put it down in a presentable way that people will understand, because this is really coming from my heart. And I'm 38 years old, and I do believe that I can live to be 300. I believe I can be even older. I believe I can be infinite. And I believe that everyone could, if they could believe it in their heart. People aren't believing anything in their heart anymore because they believe what they see on their phone. That's what they see. What you see is what you believe now. You have to believe what you don't see. And I know that, oh yeah, Dan, you can say that. But guess what, guys? Dan may be saying that, but I believe in everything I don't see. Everything. Because I've done it all, and I've felt it as if I've done it. That's the way you believe something in your heart. Well, God didn't have to worry about believing that hard and I'm saying God because I don't know what I could call it. The original vibration. The original vibration and the original God and the original thing is such a powerful source, it didn't need to prove itself to anything. Bam, it's there. Now it found a way to prove itself to itself, and it is happy. So now that we spread this around, what I know, not just think, not even just know, I experienced it, I believe it. That's why I'm talking about believe so much, even though that word has been put out there in the world so many times, it's just gotten so small. Just like the word God has gotten smaller, not in size, but smaller in idea to people than the word believe. Believe in yourself. That's as far as it goes. Believe in yourself. Because once you believe in yourself, you start really believing in yourself, like I did, like I do. And then after I started believing in myself, I'm like, I believe in me. Well, what's me? And then I really started getting into what's me, into what's my mind, what's my brain, how does my body work, why is this happening, how did these get here? And then you start asking yourself questions, and you get that answer. And then when you get that answer, and you know that answer is for sure, you ask, well, what about that? How did that come to? And you got to backtrack backwards in your mind. That's a hard task to do, and it sounds really easy to put into words, but to really do it in your mind from the point of every possibility of a physical being to a ghastly, ghostly being with every color and every sensation and every taste, like to try to take your mind to that level is excruciating. And people that have done that have gone crazy, and that's why they can't. And if someone was to walk around saying I'm a flower, which I honestly am a very mentally composed person, and I'm saying this like in a very serious voice, I'm a fucking flower, guys. You're all fucking flowers, and we can all joke and laugh about it because life is also a joke, and we can take it seriously because life is also serious. Does that all make sense to you? I mean, I only meant to say something for 5 seconds, and I turned my phone on. I meant to say like a 5-minute, maybe a minute-long thing about, I realized that now that it's extremely going to be difficult because now that I'm at the point where I feel like I'm just a human, and I'm God, and I'm a human. And now I have to use this human form to show myself to people. And almost as the God inside me, almost stop believing in myself, knowing that I'm God in Dan Alexander's body. Isn't that fucking crazy? And me, God, yes, I said fucking because I'm mad at myself in Dan's body. I'm not mad at Dan because I made the human existence this confusing. And I'm sorry, as God, saying that to people who don't even believe that he could possibly show up in one of you. Because you don't believe that God could show up in yourself. Dan had a hard time believing it, and I'm talking through him right now, and he's like, wow, how am I letting myself say this? And how am I going to let people actually see this? Because deep down right now, he knows that I am him. And he's starting to cry now, but this is him crying with me talking over it, and I don't care. Because he doesn't understand. Oh my God, this is so deep. Holy fuck, dude. I'm scaring myself every day because of, if you could understand how it was, oh my God, if you could understand how deep this is, if you were going through this yourself, do you know how this would feel? It's so confusing. I found God, lost God, found God, lost God, feel God, lose God, feel God, think he's gone, feel God, am God, boom. It's over and over and over. It's so fucking scary. And if you think that you feel the massiveness of God and you understand the whole theory of life and you can understand it so much and explain it to people if they'd work with you, but then if you want them to work with you and you say, hey, because I'm God and I can explain the world to the world, you know, they're going to be like, you're fucking crazy, aren't you? And you got to be like, yeah, I guess I am, and maybe I should play it off as I'm crazy, but I'm not crazy. I know what I'm talking about, guys. Do you hear that I know what I'm talking about? Can you tell I love you? Even if I don't have any clue who you are. Even if you're a bug and you can understand this, I fucking love you. Even if you're a leaf and you understand this, I love you. Even if you're the air around me and you can hear me, air, I know you can in some way because I made you and I can sense it. But I'm just God in human form. So how am I supposed to explain this to people so that I don't just live my life. See, I can fly. I've seen myself fly. I've felt myself flying as a human being, and I know I can do it. I was almost so confused I didn't know what realm I was in. You know how fucking stupid I feel as a person saying I didn't know what realm I was in? Because if someone told me, Dan, that they didn't know what realm they were in a week ago, I would have thought they were fucking crazy. And now I think I'm crazy because I understand it. Because I'm God in human form, and God thinks he's crazy. God's gone crazy, but he's not. This is the 51, 49% that the chosen one chose. So I can allow myself to get to the point where I'm so gone mad in my head. Oh my God, the word is bond. Why is that? Why has that always been that thing in the background where people are like, oh, I don't take my word seriously. I don't take the word seriously. I don't take the word seriously. I want to say, dear God inside me, dear God that is going in the infinite circle in the sky, that was trying to find himself, that I'm trying to find my way back to through people, through the land, through the animals, backwards, back to you. This is what we have to do. We went from the beginning of time to find this, to the beginning of existence to find this. In one moment in time, God thought, who am I? Boom. And everything from that point on led to me saying this in this tape recorder. But as I'm saying this in this tape recorder, there's 7 billion other me's out there not knowing that this is what the whole mission of life was. This is what the purpose of all life was. Not just human, not just animal, not just grass. This is the whole meaning of God. It's the whole meaning of rock. That's why everything is God. Because it's the whole reason of who am I if God asked it. To tell it back to itself. And all the people that believe in their religion are simplifying this massive, amazing God. If you think your religion is whatever, look out there in space. Look out there in space, okay? If you think your religion is whatever, if you think your religion was whatever, and space travel is stupid, if you think space is whatever and religion is stupid, think about what you're saying or what you're thinking to yourself, what you're convincing yourself of. You're convincing yourself that you as a human could never, ever, ever be God. Right? Because you're thinking, that's out there, this is down here, and I'm in here. Well, those are the three things. You're in there, out there, and all around. You are everything. Whether or not that thing that you see can see you and feel you, it was also a form of you trying to find a way to explain you to all the other forms of you. I know that's a fun little wordplay, but that's what it is, guys. That's exactly what it is. Like, this happens to me every day now. I'm having these, revelations and conclusions about life every single day. And I'm getting to be able to explain it a little better. And then as time goes on, I'm thinking to myself throughout the day, like we watched movies and stuff, and then we had cake and ice cream for my dad, and the kids laughed and all that stuff, and I embraced Dan Alexander's life, because as God being passionate and loving, he embraced Dan Alexander's life. He embraced me. Okay? This is what happens to us all. And I individualized myself again. And I went into Dan Alexander life. And I was like, okay, I got to make sure that I keep myself composed so I don't tell the kids that I'm God. Don't want the kids to think their dad's God. Why? Why would I not want my own kids to know that I'm God in human form? Because they would think I was ridiculous, because I've talked badly about God my whole life. When deep down I knew that there was him, and I would say that I'm God. I would say that kind of stuff joking around, but not often did I ever say I'm God. But I would be like, if someone's like, who do you think you are, God? I'm like, maybe. And I'd mess around and joke around like that. And I would say that I'm a sex God all the time. Take the word sex out, and then be God. But without God, there wouldn't be sex, of course. But without sex, there wouldn't be a God, because we wouldn't have been able to have more than one person to figure it out, to communicate to each other, to say the word sex. Do you understand that? So every word, there would be no word at all without God in order to make two things that created the word. So I'm afraid now that I said the 51-49%, whether or not that was a friggin' awesome idea to keep control of myself. I've allowed myself to be nuts. And I made that contract up in my mind as God in a human mind, so I've binded it with myself. So I'm going to go crazy. On the days where I feel like no one believes in me or I don't believe in myself, I'm going to feel lost. On the days where I feel that people believe in God and feel like they believe in me and feel they believe in the great thing and believe in peace and love, I'm going to feel great. So in a way, I'm feeling the emotion of the universe at one time in a human body now. And now that I know that, I know I can always stay happy a little bit over my sadness. But now my sadness is right there. And I love it because it's part of me, but it's going to hurt. And I don't want it to hurt. I want to feel the joy. I want my 51% to shine so bright that what we call God, or me understanding where I came from's percent, I want that to be so great as it's 49% that, hey, we're even, because they're both so fluent and so perfect that it works out great. But that's just not how it is. I could say something really stupid now, but then it would sound like it was Dan being creative. This actually just revelated in my mind, and I saw the letter 8 flashing around as the symbol of infinity. And then I saw in my mind how I remember as myself making it one day where the 8 it's the 2 circle type thing, but the top's a little bigger, or the bottom is or the side is a little skinnier. And people don't know why. Why do you write 8 that way? Why would somebody change the way it looks? The person that wrote that realized that 8 is the symbol of infinity. But one side, that top circle that looks like the head of the snowman, and the bottom circle that looks like the bottom of the snowman, it's bigger. And like the 8 has that smaller head because the person that made that symbol, 8s do look the same size, proportionate sometimes. But the person who made that symbol of that crisscross symbol of an 8 with the smaller head on top realized that our human existence is just the smaller part of the circle. And the big existence, the spirit in the world out there, is the bigger part, the bottom, where it all came from. And you spin around on that outside, out there, bottom part where it all came from, and you go out there on the left side. So I'm ashamed to not have known this as Dan, and I'm almost thinking it's all vibration. So maybe next time you live, it'll be in a feminine form, to understand that there is masculine to you. But if it's true in a full circle, which I don't believe it's full circle because an 8 isn't both even-sided, it's all probability and it's all cause and it's all vibrations of whatever else is existing. But the 8 means that you go in the human experience, the top circle. You go in the human experience, you go around in a circle, and you come back. You go down the other way with the non-human experience, and you come back around, and you go back up the other side, and you come back out as a negative or feminine, or you got male and female. We'll say the male source, the positive. And I'm not saying that males are positive as in good and women are negative as in bad. I'm saying just vibration, because vibration isn't neither good or bad. It's just vibration. It has to equal itself out. It has to tune. It has to find a neutral. So those are the 3: positive, negative, neutral. You know what I mean? Those are everything. The maybe, the for sure, the maybe not, the possibly not at all. Those are the 3 things. But that's why the 8 symbol is the infinity symbol, and that's why Cindy was the person I found. Her number is 8, and that's why she has a disease and doesn't believe in God and does all these things. Like, she is a compound thing of someone who, Dan Alexander, if I was to love a girl like that who doesn't believe in God and has a disease and can't walk and doesn't have belief in herself and thinks she can't do anything and would get mad at me for saying all these things about her. Well, I've been to the point where I understand that because I love her so much to say this. I can help her and heal her so much to say this. I'm a guy. I understand the other part of the 8, which is the 3, which would be half the 8 without the other half of me that would fulfill the 8. It's not the other half, because the 3 is a little more than 8. Like, all these things make complete sense as ways God left for me to explain it to Dan. So these things make so much sense to me. But if someone else was to look at it, they'd be like, oh, he's just putting that together to make it sound like whatever. But no, all these things are signs of my life that form together so that I would understand this. Or else I wouldn't be saying it in such a perfect format. I didn't sit down and come up with this. It's coming from my heart, and I love everyone the way that they truly want to be loved. And I'm afraid that the God inside me, I ask for more power than him because, you allow God in. You allow God in. God, I allow you to be all of it, but I just want you to be all of it and not scare me. If you could do it all and not scare me, I would say God be 100%. And that's why I'm making sure I'm saying if before, because I'm not breaking my own clause if it's possible. See, I myself don't know if I really went back and forth in time to find these words and make these words, but now I know that I did. That's even confusing saying it. I don't even know if I did it, but I know I did. But then the three-way thing would be like, well, I may have never got the knowledge, and I could have just went around as a human being thing, and I was just a human being. But I didn't. I wasn't unlucky like that. And it's not unlucky to be a human being at all. We are the most lucky species. But at the same time, I know that I'm more than that, so I can say they are the most lucky species. Because I've been each species. And how hard would it be for you if you were a human who had the experience to know how those all go, and then people see you and you just look like a guy, and you try to act normal because you don't want to act like God. You don't want to act like the way you think God would be, holy, hovering even, glowing a little bit, all those things. I want to do that, and I want to be allowed to do that. But the more I get the reactions of people when I say it, I feel like they want me to, like, oh, I'll keep that to yourself. Even the people that I've said it to, my mom, the people I work with, the whatever. What should I do now that I feel this way? Oh, keep that to yourself. You don't want to tell people that. That's embarrassing. If people knew that you knew me, they'd ask me about you and be embarrassed. And I don't want to be embarrassed by those other people that are actually me, in other forms refusing to believe in me. Because they think that if they have to believe in me, they have to go to some church. But they don't, because I'm right there inside them. And now I'm talking through Dan, and he's telling me, God, don't do this anymore. And now it feels weird because I'm God, and I'm Dan. And I'm this from now on. I've binded. I'm here. I'm here in the world. Experience time and space, just like I've always been. But my consciousness, the universal consciousness, has found itself through all the people that have helped me. Everyone that has been the guru of whatever art I'm talking about, like the people who've talked about Shiva and Krishna and Om and all the different languages, all the people in different countries, all the mystics and all the whatever, and all the Buddhas and all the Jesuses, all those ones that seem so great and held on a pedestal, and the way it sounds like I'm talking down about them like they're nothing, isn't because I think they're nothing. It's because I love them unconditionally enough to say that if they weren't here, any of those majorly important people, if Jesus was never here to have brought up the idea of religion, there would have never been religion, but there still would have been God. Please understand what I'm saying. There still would have been me. There still would have been Dan Alexander, whether people would have said God, Christianity, whatever, if they would have said these words, I still would have been here. A flower would have been here, whether we would have called it a flower or not. But luckily, because of all those things we've done, we've learned ways to communicate and explain and think. But unfortunately, with free will, we've given ourselves the power to doubt. And now there's more doubt, fear, worry, and disbelief than there is in pride, strength, courage, and belief, and faith, and trust. Those are all gone. Well, I can't say all gone because there are people out there listening to me who will hear me that will get that and understand where I'm coming from. In their heart, they'll understand where I'm coming from. But then they'll also have doubts that they have to come over because they've been here in this normal world. And they're going to see the next person they see that's going to say, you're silly. And they're going to like, yeah, you're right, I'm silly. I'll go back to just acting like the person I'm supposed to be. But if you change yourself slowly but surely within yourself, despite the people around you, you can find what I found. I've changed me, Dan Alexander. I know I talk as God a lot, but I'm still me. I am me. And I've in my mind, I've had every dream and every nightmare and every existence. Without time, I felt the non-existence of time. How can I explain that to other people? Today I talked to my kids, which seemed like 10 minutes, and it was an hour and 10 minutes. Like, my parents called me and like, what'd you get lost? And I was like, all we did is talk in the parking lot for like a few minutes and bought Dad a mug for his birthday and then came back, I thought we were going to be back by like 11:50 maybe, you know? And it was almost 10 to 1, or like it was almost 1 o'clock. And I was like, Jazzy, Leo, did it seem like we talked for an hour? And so it seemed like we talked for 10, 15 minutes. That's it. But the funny thing is, they understood that and they felt it too, because they believed, because even though I told myself not to tell them, I felt it in my heart and soul that I had to. But I told them to keep it a secret. Like, I was embarrassed if they told people that I was God. But it's not that I'm embarrassed to tell people I'm God. I, God, am smart enough to let Dan Alexander do what he's doing, because even he is afraid. I'm afraid to tell my kids, because if they tell their friends in school, and their friends in school tell their parents, or anyone in school says something to a teacher, they're going to be like, what? Your dad really thinks he's God? And then they're going to tell my kids something wrong about me and how wrong it is for me to have said something like that to them. And that's going to cause a little thing in their minds. And that's going to cause a little thing that could even cause me to get in trouble, as me, Dan. You know, so imagine all these plights, because I can foresee every possible outcome of something. And because of like the people in my family, I don't want to foresee their outcomes, so I don't want to be scared of it. I know that I can help them make their outcomes better by teaching them faith and belief, but that's going to be super hard for the older ones. For anyone who's older than me in my family, it's going to be super hard. For my kids, it won't be as hard, but it's still going to be hard, because they've gone this far without being properly instructed. And I dare to say that because I unconditionally love the people who've instructed them, because they were trying to do the best they could. Anyway, I need to sleep. I wanted to say like a 1-minute sentence, and now I've been talking for 46 minutes. All right, I love you, and I got to go. This is deep stuff, and I'm going through so many revelations in my mind. I want to just be human, because I don't want to feel it. But I understand that if I say I just want to be human, I lose my chance of saving the world, and I refuse to do that. So I'm holding on to God. And if I have to not talk about God in order to prove God to people, why is that? Why did we lose such faith that we were created from something greater than us? And all that we need to do is find a way to explain it. And I did. And now that I did, people are going to think I'm crazy. Maybe I'll just turn it into the best movie of all time, and people can still do their things, because they're still going to. Just because I know that I'm God, and I know that everyone else is God, but they don't have to feel about themselves being God the same way I feel about it. So they can keep thinking what they are, but they got to understand that we were all God, and religion's a choice to believe in. This is a choice to believe in. That's a choice to believe in. All those things are just choices to believe in. And whether they understand that or not, the paradox is they're doing it anyway. So now that God's in human form, he realizes, yeah, it's not that God's dead. It's not that God's not important, because he even created it all. But once he found a person that could explain it, there's so many people, they don't care that one person has that ability. Like, well, I could kill him and we could just go on without it. And we could still be in this illusion. So that's why I'm afraid somebody will hear me and kill me. So we can go on the illusion. And they can understand that power. And I've seen that as me having this conversation and the world ending, because every person realized that they could do that and have that power. So they all kill each other until there's no existence. And I'm talking like I'd be talking right now, and all of a sudden the phone would fall to the ground and I'd disappear, because I made my own universe blow up. If that makes sense. Isn't that crazy? Well, before I go too far and I say too many things that could actually hurt myself, because luckily I'm in human form that doesn't believe in me enough yet. And I'm sorry, Dan, that you don't believe in me enough yet, and I'm talking through you to you, and you still don't believe in me enough yet. I'm talking to God, and while he's talking. How weird. Well, I am going to go to sleep. This 5149 Vine that I have in my head contract is really messing me up, guys. And if you can't tell by the way I'm talking, this isn't on purpose. I'm actually driving myself nuts. But I'm not, because I refuse to, because I understand it. And I totally understand all the things that I'm saying, even though you might not, unless you're following me. Unless you listen to these things a bunch of times, I think you'll understand that I'm the universe talking to itself through a person, trying to explain rocks and bugs and pebbles and germs and sneezes and words and trains and planes and psychotic people. Like everything. I'm trying to explain everything to myself now, because I've realized that I'm the universe trying to explain everything in the universe to itself and why it did it. And now I get them all. And once I look at them, I understand why they were here. Like everyone should look at something and understand why it's here. And look at a saying and understand why it's here. And look at a thought and understand why it's here. But at the same time, in order to do that, you have to block them all out to find where you are. I think that was a very good way to end this talk. And I love you. I'm sending this to my mom without second thought. I'm hitting stop, and I'm sending it to her. And I'm embarrassed if my mom thinks I'm crazy. But I love you, Mom, and I think you know that I'm being honest. I hope you know. I believe that you know somewhere. I'm saying the word believe because that word really means a lot to me now. I believe that somewhere in you, you believe me. Because I, somewhere in me, believe me. And God, now, talking to Dan Alexander's mother, making him cry because he doesn't want to be embarrassed. I believe completely in myself. But I can't make the person I'm talking to believe in me. That's a hard issue. But basically, I want you to listen to this. I said this extra minute here, and it, God wouldn't paraphrase, and God wouldn't put a conclusion, and God wouldn't have an outro. But if he's in the body of somebody who always wanted to be a performer, yeah, he would. So that's making this whole thing harder to believe too, because I'm in the body of a performer. But I love you guys. I love everybody here, unconditionally. And so does Dan, and he loves me, and I love him, and yippee-dee-doo-dah, right? If I can get that message into your minds, we could be a greater place. This universe could be whole and sound and in harmony. That's what we need. Dan Alexander here. I love you guys, unconditionally. Bye.